Welcome, everyone. My name is Mary Grace Gardner, founder of the Young Professionista. I'm a college admissions and career coach, and I help hardworking students with getting into their ideal college. And if you are watching this live, let us know in the comments where you're watching this from. And if you're watching this on the replay, just comment replay in the comments below. I will be coming back and answering any questions that you have. So go ahead and put them in the comments. And if you are the parent of a child who is interested in pursuing theater in college, then you are going to love this interview that I have today. So with me, I have a special guest. I have Drew Boudreau with me, and he is the founder of College Auditions Pro. He, since 2015, has been helping students and their families with boosting their confidence in their college auditions, giving them the keys to elevate their performance and maximize their admissions. His background as an actor gives him the ability to detect a student's true potential, and his experience as a coach gives him the tools to help them reach it. His students have gone on to a very impressive list of colleges, including Pace, Boston Conservatory, University of Arts, Wagner, NYU, Hartt School of Music, Ithaca, Syracuse, and many others. So this is a special treat for us today to hear from Drew. Drew, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to see a friendly face.
It's awesome to be able to connect. So Drew and I met each other because we are in a program together, and we both work in the college space. And once I got to learn more about his background and his areas of specialization, I thought it'd be so amazing to learn more from his expertise. I have students who work with me to go and prepare for college. And while I focus more on the academic side and on the extracurricular side, my specialization is not in the performing arts and theater. And so once I learned about Drew's specialization, I knew that he was going to be able to provide so much value to those students who dream of pursuing theater. So Drew, let's go ahead and get started with you telling us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and why you decided to focus on this particular niche.
Yeah, I'm an actor, and I went to college for theater, and I just didn't have a great experience prepping for college, and I was sort of like flying blind, and I thought, this is already such a complicated process. Just the college admissions process is complicated, and then pairing it with theater when probably your parents, if you're the student, you're probably the first theater kid that's going to college for this. Can be very, very overwhelming and confusing. And so I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if there was someone in your corner to help make this a lot more streamlined and take a lot of the heavy lifting off your plate?
And Drew, where are you located now?
I was sort of all over. I sort of bounce around between New York, Southern California, and Northern California.
Got it. And the students that you work with, where are they located?
Everywhere. I work with students, as close to me as the town that I'm living in right now, which is Chico. I have students in New York. I have students in Hong Kong. I have students across the United States. So wherever there is a laptop, I work with students.
Excellent. So and that's even more valuable now in this age of the coronavirus where people could not be in person. So being able to get that expertise anywhere is super helpful. So tell us a little bit more then about, in your area of specialization, building that college list is probably different than, I'm going to say, quote unquote, a regular college list, right? Yeah. So when I'm saying college list, for those of you who aren't familiar, those are the potential colleges you are planning on applying to. And for those who are not going through theater, you're looking at target, reach, or you're looking for safety schools. It's a little bit different in the theater world. So tell us about building that college list.
Yeah, so I use the exact same terms, a reach, a fit, and a safety school. But when I'm talking about them, I'm talking about them in terms of the competitive nature of the auditions for each school. So I am focused on, like, how many other hands are reaching into that cookie jar trying to get that cookie for each school. Mm-hmm. And for a typical college list, a lot of my clients come in with like, oh, we're applying to like 9 or 10 schools. And I would imagine that is somewhat normal. But because for theater kids, we have 3 times the hurdles to jump through. Our college lists are noticeably bigger because we have the first hurdle that everyone has, the admissions office, right? And for most kids, that's where it stops. Like, are you admitted to the school? Great. You don't have to audition for the business school. You don't have to audition for the sports medicine school. But then you also have the second hurdle, which is the actual audition. So you go in and like, are you in the moment? Are you truthful in your performance? And then the third hurdle is, can they use you? You know, like maybe we already have enough brown hair belters. What we really need is a short base. Sorry, we think you're talented, you're smart enough, you're great. We just don't have a place for you. So because of that, my lists normally are around 17 or 18 schools. And maybe you're not auditioning for all of them. Maybe you have 2 or 3 safety schools. Maybe you're only auditioning for 15, but that's about typical.
And so one big difference is just the number and volume. So just for comparison, for those who are not applying to theater, what I typically recommend, and I know for most students and families, this is a little bit of a shocker, but I recommend somewhere between 8 to 10 schools, and you really cultivate that list. For some schools like the University of California, I count that as one school because it is one application, but I do encourage to really cull down that list because of the number of applications and essays and interviews you have to do to make it a realistic workload. And because the world of theater is very different, I'm very glad that you called that out, you do need to spread out that risk a little bit more, just because, like you mentioned, you could be that perfect candidate in all things, and it's not your fault that they just don't have that spot.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And part of that balanced list, I always talk about maximizing auditions, and this is where it starts, is on the list. Is, you know, let's say you bank 2 or 3 safety schools where, you know, academically I'm good and there's no audition for the program. Okay, cool. We'll set those aside. The remaining schools, the fit and the reach schools, I don't want to put all my eggs in the reach basket because those have, you know, a 4 or 5% admission rate. But I also don't want to put all my eggs in a fit basket because you might be great for one of your reach schools. So making that ratio somewhere between 50-50 and 70-30 in either direction, that's really the sweet spot. So if you've got like, I don't know, 6 reach schools and 4 fit schools, I love it. That's great. And then maybe the rest safety, that's absolutely fine.
So I really like you sharing this strategy with people because it may feel like you should be going through the same type of process as everyone else does, but you actually have a very different process. And this is why I wanted to bring Drew on, because while I specialize in the academic side, the extracurricular side, as soon as someone tells me theater is what they want to do, that's where I would need to be able to refer a student and their family over to someone like Drew because of that particular specialization. While I can help with this academic side, I need another expert to help with guiding that part of it. And so I love hearing where there's that intersection, but some of that is quite different regarding that strategy. Well, I also want to give a shout out to some of the people who are watching live. We've got a couple people on here, so I just want to welcome and say hi to Jesse and Stacy. I see Melissa is on here, so thanks so much for watching. As you're watching, if you're hearing anything that you like, make sure to give us a heart, give us a thumb up if there's anything that you're hearing that's helpful. And if you have questions for Drew, let us know in the comments below. This is your chance to get some expert advice, so go ahead and let us know in those comments. Hi, Lori, so you just joined on. Thanks so much for joining. So let's move on then to how realistic is it, right? There's many people who dream of being on stage, and that is their heart and passion. And I'm curious, from an expert like you, how realistic is it for students to successfully land in a great theater school in college?
From the evidence that I have amassed from my students, it is 98% a possibility. We have a 98% success rate of getting our students into their schools. So it's very, very possible of getting into the theater school that's on your list. And I will say, like, that 2% of students who don't get in, they all share the same attributes. So like, it's really, really easy to avoid not getting into your schools. if you're not memorized on your monologues and songs, that'll do it. If you're only applying to like 2 or 3 schools and they're all like Pace and Juilliard, and that's it, you know, that's not a great recipe for maximizing your admissions. So even the students who came in with, you know, they got to senior year, and up until then they were like, I want to be an econ major, and then all of a sudden fall of senior year they're like, I want to be a theater major. Even they got into their schools because they worked their buns off, and even though they didn't have years of training, they put in the work and it showed, and the schools could see it. You know what I mean? Like they could see they were organized, they were professional, they were friendly, they wanted it, they worked hard, and they got in. So it's very, very possible.
I love that. And like you just mentioned, you don't have to have had this be your passion for, you know, since you were 5. We have some of those students who knew that this was what they've always wanted. But even though they find out later on this is a thing they're interested in, it's not too late, is what I'm hearing.
Oh, yeah. No, not at all. I had in the same year, I had a student who had, she had been on Broadway when she was like 12 or 13. And I had another student who had only ever done show choir. That was it. And then like he'd never done a play. He'd never done a scene, nothing. And she didn't get into any of her schools because she only applied for like 4. And they were all like, you know, the big stinking top ones. And he applied to the number of schools I told him to apply to, and he worked really hard, and he got into all of his schools. So like, it really doesn't matter where you come from. If you put in the work, it'll get you there.
That's amazing. And, you know, what's interesting too is that, like we were mentioning, the academic side, you can get into that college for just the academic piece, but not actually get into the theater school. It's interesting because yesterday I was actually just having a session with a student whose dream is to go into theater, and she wants to make sure she has a backup plan in case the theater career doesn't pan out, right? So one of the things we were talking about, she's also passionate about biology, but knew that double majoring in theater biology probably would be really tough. And as we were talking through, trying to decipher and figure out, she has someone coaching her on the theater side, looking at the academic side with her love of biology. I said, well, what do you want to do with it? She said, I want to be a pediatrician. So if I am not on theater, her backup is she wants to be a doctor. And so we looked at how could you fit that together? And one thing we talked about, which she didn't realize, is, well, if you want to be a doctor, you could be a theater major and still take those prerequisites in medical school. You don't actually have to major in biology. You don't have to actually minor in biology, but you get all of those things together, which is where it's really powerful then to have someone who has an eye out for the theater world and also an eye out for the academics, because a student then can be all the things they want to be without just having to choose one.
I'm so glad you said that. I love telling people that like your BA doesn't really matter that much, or your BFA or BS or whatever it is, because like, you know, a BA, it becomes so cliche to say it, but it's true. Like a bachelor's has sort of become the new high school degree. And so like, it doesn't matter what your BA is in, like you can always get your MBA, you can always get your law degree or whatever you want to get. You know, a ton of friends I went to college with for theater, you know, now are MBAs and CFOs for like giant mega corporations, or they're doctors or lawyers. And like law school doesn't go, a theater major.
No.
You know what I mean? Like they don't care. So like, do what you want to do in college, and if you want to change later, there's nothing holding you back.
I love that message, because a lot of times students are freaked out that they don't know exactly what they want, and it's okay to change your mind later. It's okay to choose what you want today and then be a different person 5 years from now. And you can be a theater major and be a doctor and be a lawyer and
Absolutely.
do whatever it is that you want to do. And if that's your passion, go for it. That might even make a more interesting medical school application, right? As to your background as a theater major. So it could be a way to stand out.
Yeah.
So with the pandemic happening, I'm curious, some places are still sheltering in place. Here in California, are still sheltering in place. Some locations, some high schools are hybrid models, and some are going back to school like normal. It is all over the place. So for students who are high school students who are actively wanting to pursue theater in college, what are some things they could be doing now to stay competitive?
Yeah. If you're going into senior year, you're sort of stuck between this rock and this hard place of like really being limited at this moment in the fall. Hopefully in the spring it changes. But keep doing what you're doing. If you're enrolled in online drama classes, stay in them. If you find that there are dance classes in your area that are open to 4 people at a time, cool, enroll. Like, don't feel like you're hamstrung because the options are limited. Everyone's options are limited. You're not behind the 8 ball. You're with everybody else right now. So don't think that you're in a bad position. We're graded on a curve right now. So like you're doing absolutely fine. If you're a freshman or a sophomore, or even starting your junior year, what I would love for you to do is start looking at summer programs, especially the ones that offer instruction from different colleges, from different college theater programs. Because one thing that you can do to increase your admissions is to get to know people at the colleges that you are applying to. Because college, maybe the admissions office is like a blind application, but for the theater program, they're working with people for 4 years. It's not they're casting a show and they walk away. You're going to be their mentee for 4 years. So the more they know about you, the better. And the more certainty there is around a student, the better they feel about bringing them in under their wing. So if you have the possibility of going to a summer program that has some of your colleges there and you're working with those like heads of programs or head of acting or head of vocal music, do it. And they don't all have to be expensive. Some of them will be online this year. Mine's going to be in person next summer in California. So I really urge you to take advantage of that early on if you can.
There's so much you can do to still practice your craft, right?
Yeah.
And keep your skills sharp. And then some of it also is networking too, right? And so even just exposure to those programs, meeting those people who are decision makers,
Yeah.
and understanding what they're looking for, right? All of that can help you get a competitive edge when it comes time to apply.
Absolutely. And, speaking of networking, yeah, like I said, working with them at a college theater intensive, but then also like, you can definitely email like the heads of a program and be like, hey, do you have 15 minutes to talk? And like, they're usually very accommodating, because like they want to meet someone who's enthusiastic about going to their program, and who will give their school a lot of money. So like those two things combined, they will definitely carve out 10 minutes to like talk to you and get to know you, and it's free. So definitely take advantage of that. There's no, if you push this button, it will electrocute you. You know what I mean? Like the doors are wide open. Do whatever you want to do. The worst they can say is, I can't right now. Can we try later? And then you're still networking with somebody. Once the pandemic is a little less severe, you can also ask for like tours of the campuses from these heads of programs. That way you get to see the campus and you get to meet with them. There are so many free opportunities that really give you some more exposure to the people who you're going to be auditioning for later.
And I would love if someone is watching this live or on the replay and your child actually does this, let us know in the comments, because this is a tip I think that is extremely, extremely valuable, and very rarely does someone actually do it, right? It sounds so easy and so simple, and it's such a game changer, yet the number of students who actually do it is very small, right? And so if you actually have a child who is going to be doing this, let us know in the comments. And once they actually do it, let us know in the comments, and so we can cheer you on. But putting yourself out there, well, I know it can be really scary, especially for a student, you have to also remember it's 2 directions, right? So you as a student are trying to show why you are great for this program, but vice versa, the school is also trying to show you why they're great for you too, right? So also think of it as a 2-way direction. And like Drew said, it's a free resource. And actually, it's pretty rare for students to be bold enough, confident enough, and be courageous enough to actually hit the send button on that email, which sounds silly, but actually is quite difficult. And it's a special kind of student who's able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Drew, I would love to, and as folks are, I see a couple more people are watching. So thanks. I see more people are joining us. Thank you so much for joining. Make sure again to hit hearts or the thumbs up if you're hearing things that are helpful. Make sure to share this too on your timelines if you know other families who are interested in their child pursuing theater. And let us know if you have questions. I'm taking a look periodically to see if questions are popping up. Drew, I'd love to hear if you could share with us your favorite case study of a student that you've worked with, where just in particular it stands out to you in all the years that you've been doing this work. What's a story, an example of a student that you can share with us?
Oh man, there's some good ones. I'm thinking of a I'm thinking of a kid named Bryson, who's at Wagner now, which is one of my favorite theater colleges. He came in and he couldn't put two sentences together, and not because he didn't know what he wanted to say, just because he was so nervous. And he was a theater kid, but he was just so he had so much that he wanted to say that he couldn't get it all out, and he had trouble calming down. And we took him from sort of nervous Nelly, like Jerry Lewis status, to confident, cool, collected, like leading man status within about 3 months. And when he auditioned for Wagner, they let him in pretty darn quick. And he wasn't there when he started. He needed to know that his artistic merit was already there. You know what I mean? He needed to hear that what he had inside was already super powerful, and he just had to get it out. He didn't understand how much presence and power he actually had. And then when he found it, whole different performer. And they offered him a huge chunk of money too. And so he found his place. Financially, he was set. And then he also just kind of grew into his own artistic self. It was really, really powerful.
Oh, so many things wrapped in that story, building that confidence, finding that confidence that will not only help just in theater, but in life in general. Imagine now that he understands his power and his worth, how far that will go for him. And then the financial part of it too, right? College is just getting more and more expensive. And for him to be able to find his power, his worth, and then be able to demonstrate that and then win a scholarship of that nature, that can set a student up for life, right? Because so many students now are graduating with so much debt, and being able to have that opportunity to not face that can set him up for success later on. So that's a wonderful story.
Yeah, that's honestly the financial part is one of the big things that I take into consideration for students who are going into the professional arts. Because if you're graduating with, $200,000 in debt, you're having to take, 2 or 3 other jobs. But if you're graduating with, $20,000, $30,000 in debt, that can be money and time that you're using for audition class, voice class, dance class, even buying an extra coffee at the end of the day, because you have that more disposable income, and you're not super stressed just about paying down your debt. You're instead able to be an actor who has a reasonable amount of debt to pay down, but you can focus on your craft. And there are so many great theater schools that are both private and state schools that are super duper affordable, that people just haven't heard of because they don't have the brand power of some other schools. But it's my favorite thing to get a student into a real kick butt program that doesn't cost a lot of money.
I think that makes such a difference. And that's where you and I also have such an alignment. So like I was saying at the very top of the hour, that I focus on helping students getting into their ideal college. Ideal doesn't always mean the top name brand, right? And if that is not the right fit, the right fit can mean a lot of different things. And one of them, a real one, is the financial aspect, right? Is when you're looking at a child's success, it's not just getting them into college, which is a big, wonderful success. It's also what's their life trajectory, right? So
Right.
if you're in a situation where you are going to be multi six figures of debt and your trajectory is not going to be able to pay that off for 30 years, that's a very different circumstance, right? Than if you were to be able to make informed choices based upon what other options are there. And not everybody knows that, which is why your guidance, I think, is so helpful to these families.
Agreed. I'm so glad we're in alignment on that.
And so is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners, our viewers
You know,
before we
the big thing I would love to tell people, because it's like the second week of September now. It's so not too late. Like, even a lot of the early decision applications for theater aren't due until November 1st. So if you're a senior and you're like, oh, but I haven't even started, don't give up. Like, you have so much time. The other thing I'll say is, like, get off of College Confidential. It will make you go absolutely loony. It's a boiling cauldron of anxiety. It's like having a stub toe and going on to WebMD. It's only a recipe for making yourself more worried. Like, those are crazy people who are going to tell you, oh, you needed to start applications when you were 9 years old. Like, it's just nutty. Like, get information from a college coach or get it from the school. The best antidote to anxiety is reality. Anxiety is born from not knowing, simply not having the information. That's what it is. So when you get the information, your anxiety levels really, really balloon down. So get information from reliable sources, not from, like, gossip message boards. It will do yourself a favor, and you'll see you're actually in a much better position than you think you are. Once you take, like, comparisons out, you're actually in a pretty good spot. So know that you're doing great, and get off of College Confidential.
I'm laughing because as soon as you said that, a burst of hearts and thumbs ups happened in the Facebook Live. And look, every time I'm looking at the corner, so I'm looking at my phone to see the engagement of what people are doing. I saw a burst there. And I laugh because I can't tell you how many times families and students will tell me, well, on College Confidential, I saw, and I'm thinking, oh no, you're just going to freak yourself out before we even have this conversation, because it's just like anything, right? It's either the most worst case scenario that people are sharing, and it doesn't give you a whole picture. And so that's where the value can be with having a neutral third party who can give you advice specific to what your situation is, versus some generalization that thousands of people are trying to fit into their situation. I think that can make a difference. So for those who haven't had a chance to put in their questions, or for those of you who are watching the replay, feel free to leave your questions below, and Drew and I will come back to take a look at them. And if you haven't already, make sure to like Drew's page, College Audition Pros. If you are on it, you'll see that we did a crossover. He interviewed me on his page recently about college prep. So you can check out that video there. And Drew, if people want to learn more about you or how to work with you, what next step should they take?
So I offer consultations in light of COVID, and being that it's probably a drag on everyone's finances. I'm waiving fees for consultations indefinitely. So if you just want to talk for half an hour and see maybe if I can look at your stuff and, give you an assessment of, like, where you are and maybe where you should be headed, I'm happy to. Just go to collegeauditionpros.com/book. Like, I want to book a session. And there you can pick me as an instructor and choose a consultation and pick a time and date that works for you.
That is so incredibly generous of you to waive those consultation fees right now, especially with what's going on with COVID-19. So for those of you who are interested in learning more about the theater route, or having your child's current resume related to it, getting evaluated, whatever it might be, where you can provide that value, make sure to take him on that offer. Make sure to let your friends know also, if you have other families that you're aware of who are interested in theater, let them know by sharing and liking this post. Thanks so much for all the likes. And so, Drew, it's been such a pleasure talking with you again today. Thanks so much for your
You
time.
too, Mary Grace. Let's do this a lot. This is great.
I love it. All right, take care.
Okay, bye-bye.